Once upon a time, I decided to make a Joaquin and River Phoenix documentary. I went to see the movie Joker, and I realized that not much has been done on Joaquin. No documentary has ever been done, so there seemed a need for one. I thought if I made a documentary for him, it would end up being rather short, but important. I was fighting with the idea of making another documentary so soon. I had only just released the one I had done on Sterling Holloway on November 4th. But when I went on a trip to Michigan to show it there for a humble and loving audience, my next documentary was almost all I could think about. I stood around here in my mother's house and I thought, that's it then. I have to make one on Joaquin. I knew of Joaquin before I saw him play Joker. When I was a teen, 11, I saw The Gladiator. I used to pretend I was Emperor Commodus and I would hang sheer scarves around my bed to feel regal. I heard Joaquin was nervous during shooting, but when I played Commodus it was nothing but fun. I may have seen Joaquin for a few seconds in the movie Signs, and I know I saw him in The Village, which I still watch every Halloween. Then there was his brother River. The first time I saw the name River Phoenix, I was around 12, and I was reading a book about Johnny Depp. Johnny seemed so saddened by River's death, I thought that he had been Johnny's best friend in the whole world. There was also mention of James Dean in connection to River, so for many years, maybe up until I saw the movie Giant, I would confuse the two. Once I knew who James Dean was for sure, I looked up River Phoenix, and what came up first was a notion of child abuse and the image of him in Stand By Me. I didn't watch any of his movies at the time. Right after my trip to Michigan, I was off to the mountains of Pennsylvania. I was to stay in a small modern cabin and watch a darling old dog while the owners were away. I was sick the full week, probably with the flu, but I had an evening ritual that helped me take my mind off things. I would lay in this bed and watch a little part of Ruskies until I drifted off to sleep. It was the first movie I saw where Joaquin was a little boy. Sometimes I would have nightmares and I would awake to find the dog by my bedside. On nights when the dog would have nightmares, I would return the favor. When I went to the Science Center, I looked at this display and said to myself, I think I'm going to watch Space Camp next. And when I went outside to see the submarine, I smiled to myself as it reminded me of Ruskies. I saw in the ending credits of Space Camp that the movie was filmed in Huntsville, Alabama, at the same space center I had visited in 2014 during a cross-country trip. But as December rolled on, getting ready for the holiday season took over, and that of course meant going back to enjoying the warmth of Sterling Holloway's films. And then there was this humorous Instagram post of mine. And then it was my birthday on January 4th, a birth date I share with Holloway, so I remained, or tried to remain, in a happy mood over the winter. But by the end of December, dreams were pulling me in a different direction. Because my dreams were so vivid and unusual, I started keeping a dream journal. I wanted to figure out what the dreams were telling me so that maybe, just maybe, they would resolve themselves. Please forgive the typos, as I would always write these dreams in a hurry before I forgot them. I had had many, many dreams that I was Joaquin throughout December. So many I thought maybe I could get rid of the feelings if I made this River and Joaquin video. Even in the darkest hour, you know where to turn. Even in the stormy weather, you There, no more dreams. It's out of my system, but I was wrong. A little later, I dreamt that River's ghost walked through me, and from that dream on, I started dreaming as River. It was then that I realized that I couldn't just do a documentary on Joaquin. It had to be about River too. You see, you cannot have one without the other. I started watching River's films, and I came across Mosquito Coast. I had seen River act before. I had seen the film with my parents when I was little. I had forgotten. Harrison Ford's character in the film was not unlike my own father, as far as his distaste for mass society and predetermined faith. When I was little, I assumed we were watching the movie to find out, what would happen to us, like a glimpse into our family's future or something. I identified with River's character. Watching all of River's films was an utter joy to me. I related with the young teen and his older characters as well. They were a relief from the gigantic stack of Joaquin movies I had to fish through. I ordered all their movies from the library and took them back as I watched them and took notes. I was searching for any scenes or moments that could be used in the documentary. Let me tell you straight off, I love watching Joaquin act. He is always surprising and new, but unfortunately not all the movies he's been in match up to his talent. It felt as though I was sitting in front of my TV for 100 years, watching the same movie over and over and over again. There's a man. He knows a woman. Someone dies. There's a man. He knows two women. Someone dies. There's two men. There's one woman. Someone dies. That was the 90s for you. There were some amazing films too. Some I can't even talk about now without crying, but most of the time was spent fast-forwarding sex scenes and pausing to see who exactly got killed. There was a fun moment though when I had a puppy staying with me and she got up to lick Joaquin's face every so often on the screen. I don't know why, but she just loved the sights and sounds from Ladder 49. River had a few films which I felt were just a medium for him to be shirtless or show off his mound of golden spun hair, but hey, that was the 80s for you. River's acting was so very natural and truthful. He also had some films that really hit home. All in all, they both have an amazing body of work, but in January, I was quite tired of sitting on my butt with my eyes burning from flat-screen TV blue light. Pretty quickly, though, I got an idea for the ending of the documentary. The minute I saw Stand By Me, I knew I wanted the ending scene to be my ending. Then I got the idea for the classical music from Running on Empty, with footage of Joaquin and River faded together. The sad thing is, it even got me when I was editing it. Why do I do this to myself? In all seriousness, though, I wanted to convey how things could have been for River, with all the noise and media gone, just a boy playing the piano, enjoying the music within himself, and Joaquin putting the rocks in his pockets, being pulled by the water, and then last minute leaving them behind and swimming towards the light. Well, you saw it. My dreams in January were as follows. I had had a dream that I was walking with my brother River down a dusty summer trail. River had said, "I want to show you something," and when we reached a particular rock along the roadside, he stopped and uncovered these stone figures. They were alien carvings. River and I met some man along the trail that River was trying to run away from. We ran away into town and hid out in this western pool hall type dive. The man had attacked him on the roadside and cut his finger. I remember trying to frantically get wet paper towels for him in the bathroom. I cleaned his cuts of blood, and I also remember how scared I was when that man grabbed him and tried to drag him away. Along with dreaming as River, I was still having dreams that I was Joaquin as a little child. On January 23rd, I dreamt I was crying out for River. I was in bed in the morning. River, who was also rather young, came in and lay beside me. "What's the matter, buddy?" he said. "I just need you," I said. He wrapped his arms around me and held me from behind. I drifted off to sleep, but when I really woke up that morning, I called out for him again. "River! River!" This was a very common dream to have. and then I dreamt I was holding River Phoenix's hand. I walked into the stunning dark wood library in a private home. It was a sunny autumn day. A wind kicked up and blew the glass door open near the desk, and dried leaves skittered in. River appeared sitting on the patterned carpet. He was about 14. I remember he looked like this. I sat next to him. Since he was a ghost, no one else could see him. Someone came in the room and asked me a question. I reached out and set my hand on top of River's. His hand was so real-feeling. His thumb was cold, and the top of his hand was warm where the sunlight had touched it through the window. I was talking to this person for a while before I realized they couldn't see River. River lay down, and so did I. We talked, staring at the ceiling, side by side. Then I held his head and shoulders in my arms. He rested across my lap, and his face started to disintegrate, and he started to disappear, and he cried. It was like he could feel it happening. Then I dreamt about a Joaquin character who was in a dark warehouse. He was getting thinner and thinner as he sat in an electric chair, his face painted white. He was turning into the Joker. He was racked with guilt, and no one would listen as to why. No one cared. He was just crazy. I began my research into two very big themes, animal abuse and child abuse. Most of my research time looked like this. Oh my God! What? Hey! Down the lawn, right. Oh my God. I couldn't believe no one was seeing what I was seeing. So many things, most notably the child abuse section, made me feel as though no one had eyes or ears. How are you missing this ran through my mind a zillion times. The second segment I worked on, after the ending, was a segment I called Earthlings. I spoke to a friend about the humble beginnings of my documentary-making process. Well, River still stays with me, so I decided to make a documentary about him and his brother. I already know I want nature shots of rivers in different seasons. Looking into their lives is painful, but it won't let me rest. This must be something I have to do. Everyone sensationalizes them, and I want to show a more earthly story. I was so happy before all this hit me, but you can't always ask for what you're given. I'm sure you understand the struggle. One day I devoted myself to investigating animal rights violations, and the very next day I spent my time investigating human rights violations. By the end of this process I was lying in the ground looking up at the dirt, which is to say I was depressed. One day all I could do was just sit in a rocking chair and stare, feeling numb, with thoughts flooding my brain.
I'm awake, Mom. I woke up at 5 o'clock and I couldn't get back to sleep.
The mutated animals and thoughtless and purposeless violence against them was too much to bear. I was not just depressed and despondent, it made me angry. I knew of this subject beforehand, but the fact that it extended into almost every situation where humans have contact with animals disgusted me. I never wished to hear another word against those crazy hippy-dippy people, those people who think past their own comfort and are laughed out of town for being conscientious. Or at the very least, if you laugh at those folks, you should not be spared from viewing the reams of graphic content I had to endure. The tortured beagle puppies who get thrown in the literal trash can when labs are done testing harmful cosmetic products on them. Being born in a cage and never getting out. Then see how you feel, and how you react, and more importantly, how you respond. You may just make a few adjustments in your own life. Then there was my investigation into the children of God.
Well, he wouldn't go if he could possibly help it. But, oh, you shouldn't dress like you hippies do, though. That's exposing too much of the flesh and glorifying the flesh. If you ask me, with some people, it's humbling the flesh. And I'll just tell you something. Some of these people who have those sanctimonious, pious, self-righteous, hypocritical attitudes about nudity ought to try it sometime. see how proud it makes you.
I watched many things over several weeks, but when I finally zeroed in with my full attention, I saw an eerie pattern emerge. I started to draw a parallel between human rights violations and animal rights violations. It all seemed the same, and in fact, it is. I also felt the same emotions about the situation. There were a few days where I struggled to even look at River's face. You see, I think not just with my mind, but with my instincts. Once again, I knew of this subject beforehand, but the fact that it extended this far simply disgusted me. I never wished to hear another idealized word about how happy childhood is, what a wonderful and innocent time it is, and then some of the most detrimental phrases go right along with that. Stuff like that doesn't happen in my neighborhood, in my family, to my child. Blind belief that you are getting the whole story, just because you check in with your child time and again and have their phone password. I noted that in the cult I was researching, it was very easy to feel like one big happy family, and then adults could easily pry your children away without you even knowing it was happening. Sometimes it only takes a minute. Later on, when I was investigating Hollywood, I came across many stories of it happened in broad daylight when anyone could have walked by and seen. Children have a vast inner life and have their own reasoning for not sharing certain things. Some things they never share no matter how old they become. But I have also noticed that some victims will let things slip out on purpose, testing the waters to see if it is safe to reveal their full secret, and also to see if anyone shows any interest. Most of the time, due to the adult's own discomfort with the subject matter, they will respond by laughing nervously, and the child will play along and brush it under the rug too, and then climb up again. River's closer friends refused to comment on the subject, as River spoke with them in confidence. And another layer that should be mentioned here, that I hope I got across in the documentary, is that River considered his siblings like his own children, and probably his parents were 2 extra kids to mind as well. Everyone said it that knew him. For 5 minutes, they also said it was impossible not to be mothered or fathered by him. And it came to the surface in River's own speech about the Phoenix kids. I have to find a bigger house for the kids to grow up right. My point is, he was very protective of his other siblings, and I don't believe he would have shared everything with them. He not only had mouths to feed, he had kids to be strong for, and with his parents more on the sidelines, still maturing and learning as they went through life, I personally credit how Rain, Joaquin, Summer, and Liberty turned out to River's parenting skills. It was important to me, whether you believe that River was abused in the cult, somewhere else, or not, that you get all the information about how the cult operates and the environment in which he was raised, and then take a good simple look at his face, and then see what you believe, and how you think, and more importantly, how you respond. You may just take a few moments to look a little deeper. As an example, the shots I show of children from the Children of God cult, they were not breaking down and telling all at last to adults who wanted to help them. They were crying because they didn't want to leave. Things are not always as they seem. Upset is the best word I can use to describe how I was feeling during this time. I felt so paper thin and worried for my own friends that I contacted them with this message. I had to express this. I had to start looking into some dark stuff for my latest project. Yesterday was animal rights violations, and today I had to look into human rights violations. I'm in a daze and I feel 6 feet under. It's really affecting me. If you could send me a small sound clip to let me know you all are here on the planet and are okay. And so they did, and I am most grateful. My mood was not helped by the weather. It was always cold. It was always raining. I so needed to get outside and take walks and think, or rather not think. But that was just around the corner. Although I admit that this process was depressing at times, I also know that the best thing to do when creating something is not to be at war with it. Just let the conversation flow. Let it lead the way. Say something and see what it says back, and so on, until you both reach the final destination together. Just you and the mystery. I would walk this alleyway in my neighborhood and I would listen to this one song over and over and think about River and his friend Keanu for some reason. I didn't think there was a place for it in the documentary, but I just kept listening.
Try to save him. Well, I've been taking things that I don't wanna take, slamming other doors and feelings breaking me down. The feeling never lasts, I need to satiate the feeling that I had before you took me right down. Having you when it starts to get a small high, short amount of time before the birds fly by. The lighting in your room was always too low. We said our goodbyes before we said hello. A small space, you changed me. In a crowded place, you isolated me. Just tell me the truth, it'll hurt less, I guess. Just tell me the truth, it'll hurt less, I guess.
Most segments were thought of in this way. Since I now had a clear idea of some of the moods and information that I wanted to cover, I started building the documentary from the beginning. The whole thing was written with this pen and in this notebook. Yes, I know, so professional, but the heavier the subject matter, the more eccentric the writing materials. This was good for making lists of new ideas and keeping track of what had been done. Some Fridays were experimental and exciting, and other days were spent editing and trying to keep track of everything at once. I remember February as a blur of activity, but there were a few defining features. I announced the documentary on social media on February 1st. Joaquin won the Oscar on February 9th. Knew it. And then I ate too many sweets on Valentine's Day. Things were progressing at a steady pace. And then I hit a snag. My dreams in February were as follows. I had a dream that I was River and I got into a car accident. I was arrested. I remember how awful it felt. My body ached just at the thought of having to leave my family on the other side of that door. It morphed into a dream in which I was being strangled. And then I had a dream as myself again, and my dad was reading a paper about River Phoenix, how he ran off the road and is now in an institution for people on drugs, and he said people like that just want attention. Then suddenly I was sitting in a room. It was dark with candlelight. Everyone was wearing black and sat in a half circle. It was a funeral. I talked to the kids for a while that were there, who sat next to a lady with a shiny, wide-brimmed hat. This was a viewing room, very small. I noticed the women were talking together, saying nothing nice about the deceased, and then went on to swap recipes and other gossip. The men were silent, or maybe there were none at all. When I got up to leave, it was then that I noticed the coffin. No one had paid any attention to it. No one had even looked at it. I knew River was inside. It was dark black wood with some fake burgundy flowers on top. When I opened the door from the viewing room, I was back in the white police station, back in the institution. I guess River had died there. I will try and recount this dream the best that I can. In the spirit of trying to go with the flow, on the night of February 22nd, when I lay down to sleep, I told my brain, show me what happened to River. I didn't know what I was going to dream, but I certainly didn't imagine this. I dreamt about Chris Chambers from Stand By Me. He was with his friend Gordy in the woods at night. Chris and Gordy were talking and wondering when their other two friends, Vern and Teddy, would be back from collecting more wood for the fire. Suddenly, two tall men, who appeared to me only as shadows, crunched through the woods and stood before us. It was at this moment that I simultaneously was dreaming from Chris Chambers' perspective, and then also from Will Wheaton's character, Gordy's perspective. One of the men took Chris and bent me over a log. I remember I could feel my face contorting. I remember screaming. The other man took Gordy and threw him over a log as well, only a few feet away from me. But he didn't touch him. He just sort of held him there. Chris's face was turned to him, to his friend, and I reached out a hand, and then Gordy reached out a hand for me. Gordy and I held hands the entire time. And I remember when I was in Gordy's perspective, I was looking at Chris's face, and it is something I cannot describe. There are no words to describe what his face looked like or how I felt holding his hand. Then the men left. I was just sitting on the ground, shaking and sweating in disbelief. We said nothing. When our other two friends came back and found us, they didn't know what had happened. They knew something was wrong, but I didn't let on as to what. I remember I held Vern in my lap and stroked his back and his hair. I think I sang a sort of lullaby to him. I just told him everything was okay and everything would be all right. Even though Chris was the one that was hurt, I had to put my pain aside to comfort another. It felt like being a parent. There was a section missing from the documentary, a section I didn't feel qualified to tackle. Child abuse in Hollywood. But as it turns out, like anything, all it took was research with a head on my shoulders and a beating heart in my chest. It was too important not to mention. After all, I was trying to express the environments that the Phoenix brothers were placed in. I did not mention in any section whether or not I think abuse occurred to River or Joaquin. I just state the facts, what happened when. I ask that you take your head and your heart and come to your own understandings on all these matters, including River's death, which I will cover soon enough. I began my examination of the dark corners in Hollywood, and by day 2, I felt like this.
Bob.
Yeah.
Carl Bernstein on line 1.
1? Yeah. Bernstein.
I think I got a lead on Dole.
I got it.
What?
I just talked to him. I just hung up from him. Bernstein, listen, it goes all the way to Stans.
What are you talking about?
It goes all the way to Stans. He gave the check to Stans for the committee to re-elect.
Did he say that?
He said it. I've got it on my notes.
I sat with 2 sweet dogs while their owners were away every evening for a week. I would simultaneously watch TV and do my schoolwork while rubbing the littler one's belly. Sometimes I would study oceanography or neuroscience, or continue my study of Hollywood. One night when I was waiting to be picked up, I stood on the rickety balcony looking out at the city lights, and I contacted a River fan. I asked them if they had come across anything about Hollywood abuse concerning River, and they directed me to Details magazine. This had happened so often. I would get going in one direction, and it was always, see, the children of God. It kept folding back on itself, which was a red flag to me that Hollywood really did their job of making sure that that was the only concrete story you got. And now, of course, no one will look into the Children of God's story any further either, because Wikipedia now reads, years later his brother Joaquin would claim that River was joking. One thing is said, and it is believed, and then another thing is said, and suddenly that is believed. Personally, I think that the truth lies somewhere in between. There are an infinite number of possible scenarios that could have occurred as far as River's time in the cult or Hollywood goes. After much debate, I decided not to mention any examples here because I didn't wish to fixate on any specific possible combination. But scientifically speaking, there are things in nature that operate under a completely different principle than, if it's not this, it must be that. I do rather resent, though, that all these things have now either been dropped cold or were never looked into at all. What was slightly difficult about building the Hollywood section and even talking about it now is that there is a hype aspect surrounding the subject matter. Hollywood has done it again. It has even turned its warts into silver screen material to be weighed by critics and romanticized by spectators, and the true people and the true stories tend to get lost. It is another reason for following your instincts. Long before I did my research, certain moments in River and Joaquin's films made the hair go up on the back of my neck. It is one thing to indulge in teen fantasies when you are a teen. In the beginning of Little Nikita, the first time we see River's character, he waves hello to his parents briefly, and then we watch him change his clothes. Why we needed to see him change was probably for the same reason we needed to see his right thigh exposed when he was lying in bed. He was a teen idol after all. He must have felt like he had centerfold creases running like a seam down his face during this time, but that is neither here nor there. We all had posters on our walls growing up, but once we have grown up, I would hope that we would have taken those posters of half-naked underage boys down. In A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, Jimmy is given the task of driving home his mother's divorced friend, Joyce. She seduces him. River was 17 or had just turned 18 by a hair when he filmed these scenes, but he looks 14. In Surviving, A Family in Crisis, right before the end credits, Philip's father comes all the way around the piano just to hold River by the back of the head and the face and force a kiss on him. It is a split second, but the actor also kissed Heather O'Rourke's character on her lips several times throughout the film. There is a deleted scene from Explorers where a bully rips Wolfgang's pants from the back pocket all the way down the leg. That is harmless enough, but for some reason it bothered me. If you think about it, someone thought up that scene, someone wrote it, someone had it filmed, and then someone took it out. It is the casual air in which those moments were produced that give me the shivers. The common thread I felt that ran between I'm Still Here and Joker was both films' commentary on media. How some people will believe anything if it is sold as the truth. I felt it a very fitting segment right after Hollywood. A bright spot during this time was watching 7 Brides for 7 Brothers every week, or most nights with dinner.
I'm not hungry.
First time I ever heard you say that.
22 episodes didn't seem like enough at all. The other thing I used the upstairs TV for was checking wording on a bigger screen after having moved a paragraph a 16th to the left or the right, depending, on the computer. I have very few things to say about the segment on River's death. It was instantly clear to me after having read the autopsy report and having a clear understanding of the workings of the human body due to my surgery studies, that he was not a drug addict. I also detected that all the folks who spoke the loudest and claimed he was were unsavory characters who had their own agenda. A man in the film industry who boasted about sleeping with River more than once to a film director, yeah, nice alibi, said he told River, "I'd rather you just point a gun to your head and pull the trigger," referring to his alleged drug use. Since River was not an addict, what would cause him to say that? And perhaps he never said it to River at all. It should not be looked at as a completely unbelievable thing that River could have been hurt and struggled through life as a highly sensitive person and still not succumb to addiction. It can be done. The media spread the rumor, and it leaves, as usual, no room for hope. When I was in my hairdresser's waiting room, I looked over at the coffee table. I saw Joaquin and River plastered on the front of People magazine. I picked it up, and I instantly thought, it's happening all over again. The headline about River's death, the fact that it was in People magazine, all of it. I looked around the room just to make sure I hadn't time-traveled back to October 1993. Everyone's talking about his death again because of the buzz around Joaquin's film Joker. How unfair to both men. As far as whether River was murdered or not, due to the amount of toxins he had in his bloodstream at the time of death, a less informed person may say it was, unquestionably a mafia hit. It looked as though whoever killed him certainly wanted to make sure he was dead. We cannot at this time successfully theorize on who and why, but I believe it is abundantly clear that even though River was known to take drugs now and again, his death was not by his own hand and was in no way an accident. It was within this month that a worldwide virus started to affect my corner of the world. We were all asked to stay indoors except for walks, and work was scarce. My dreams in March were as follows. On March 13th, I dreamt I was River Phoenix, and in the dream I was seizuring. In real life, I could feel my head as it kept hitting the pillow again and again. My body was shaking. Once dead, I remember my spirit sat up, and I told my sister Rain exactly what it felt like to die. Spring is about rebirth and hope, another chance, much like the mythical phoenix which obtains new life by arising from the ashes of its predecessor. I hope the documentary inspires you to think for yourself, make your own art, make your own videos, your own music, your own contribution, to let your voice be heard. No one has a voice like you. No one is like you. And you count. You matter. You make a difference every day just by being here in the universe. If anyone has any questions or just wishes to talk, you may contact me directly at perinogirls@gmail.com. I look forward to our talks. River and Joaquin will ever be connected, but I didn't want to spend much time on comparing them. I just wanted to show a subtle mingling of their spirits. Their spirits have mingled with mine. I've had many moments in my life in which I felt their world walking into mine or mine into theirs. To name just several examples, I visited a relative in Gainesville, Florida for a while, and it was the most calming place on earth for me. I considered moving there.
Vocês sabem muito da Perino, solitário, Rio, você traça, Rio.
I visited cliff dwellings similar to the ones in Dark Blood, and there is nothing like the quiet of a desert space. I visited Colorado, in which river scenes from Indiana Jones were filmed. Then there were some emotions that were displayed on film. There was much in this film that could have made you cry, but for me, the subtle truth of the scene really got to me.
The burgers are getting cold, Doc. Holy moly.
It was a tiny but true scenario, a feeling not unknown to me, though I specifically remember watching this in place of The Simpsons.
I'm excited. I wanted to do the show because I wanted to do the show one more time before my beauty fades.
Well, then you're here. Thank goodness you're here. Are you promoting?
Yes, I'm promoting my new movie, which has not been offered to me yet.
Congratulations.
You never know.
Congratulations.
But this is the greatest show on television because there is no host in late night that pretends to care the way you do.
There was another emotion that I identified with, that of missing my mother after she moved. One day I walked into the dollar store. I believe I was buying flowers to brighten up my home, when a woman walked by and I was sure it was my mother. I wanted to ask her, "How did you get here?" She was the same height as my mom and blonde, but looked nothing like her at all. But for some reason, I just kept staring. I was sure. The woman gave me a very strange look, and I started to look through her, and then she walked by me and was gone. I knew it wasn't her, but I guess I was thinking of her that much. When I was little, how many times I had sat and cried and wished with all my heart that I could be in space, or Hogwarts, or anywhere. I just wanted to be swept away. And then, of course, I relate to the brothers' sense of humor. All the way, man. I myself had used their vibes to add to my own comedy shows, called Kitch at Home and Fluffy's Life.
You're trying my patience. I'm not trying. Why don't we move on to something else? You know what? You feel like eating again? I feel like eating again. Excuse me, it's me in the back with the oddly colored robe. What is it, number 15? I can't really hear. Could the Emperor speak up? Could you, I'll try to not whisper and then spontaneously shout, as I'm known for. Hominid artifact fossil. In your notebook, rate how well you know each term. I know what this word means. I've seen this word before, but I don't know what it means. I've never seen this word before. Could you stop? Just a favor to me personally, could you stop taking little kid inhalations in between every syllable? Please? Okay, I'll try to breathe less. Just continue reading before you read. I have been meaning to talk to you for a while now. So what was this, a warm-up? I have spent many hours, many days, many months, angry at how you treat your wife without her knowing it. Now, Rosalie don't mind it. If she minded, she would have noticed. It's like talking to a plate of spaghetti. And you're like talking to a bowl of basmati rice. What is your point? My point is, I think we need to have a little serious discussion. I shouldn't be so mad at you. I should try and understand you. I've been really mad, but I have chosen to let that go. Good job. You know what, Big Shot? Mr. Embroidered Vest? I have been thinking about having a little talk with you. You know why I like your name so much? Gary is because you're like SpongeBob's sidekick. No, SpongeBob's sidekick name was Patrick. SpongeBob's pet's name was Gary. I will be sure to tell Mr. Krab that offends you. Oh, and my father? Burn. I think I like winter, and then I get my head stuck in a sweater. It's alright, I understand your humor. Well, I don't understand it all the time, but I respect it. That doesn't help me unless you laugh. Oh, that's really funny, Kitch. You didn't even remember my name? I've got to take my shoes off when I get home. Mom's gonna love that. What am I gonna love? Nothing? I didn't say anything. Something about taking my shoes off, though. I've never found a four-leaf clover. Mom did, though, once. Really? I what now? You found a four-leaf clover? Our discussion here isn't gonna work unless I catch up to you. You're starving? You had a Thanksgiving dinner for lunch. I can't help it, okay? I have very high metabolism. And I have a very high metabolism because I think all the time. Relax, relax. You sound like your pet mouse. We have to start cleaning the table before we can decorate. I did not sign up for cleaning. Kids, are you fighting? What's going on? We're not fighting. Wolfgang ate all our yogurt. Hey! If someone told me that the sand dune music would be playing while Wolfgang was standing on my computer desk stringing lights, I wouldn't have believed you.
I regretted that there was no time in the documentary for a reel like this.
Oh, sorry. Did you mind walking barefoot?
You know, it was all right. I mean, there's something kind of fun about getting up and not having to worry about shoes and just walking out the door. But I did have like some meetings at like Beverly Hills Hotel, and that was strange. Did you notice I just turned into like a valley girl? There, did you notice that? I was at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I was like walking around barefoot. It was so weird.
You just go to book the face thing, and you just type in.
What's face?
Facebook.
Okay.
And then you just type in.
What if you don't have a Facebook account?
Okay. What I do is I go.
To writeloveterms.com.
Hold on, it was really simple. I swear.
That's it. Easy enough. Joaquin made it a lot harder than it. If you need to start with that.
Eugene, you mind? I'm paying you by the hour. What is time? I just met the mother of my children.
It's running now. Wait. Push the orange button. Press the orange button. Press it.
It's pressed.
Yeah.
I can't. Wait, ready? Do it now. I missed it. Do it again. Sorry. Ready? I want to watch it play back. You're a fat kid. What? 101 ways to torture a fat kid. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. That's stuck in there. Come on. All right. Let's go do it. 10 ways to torture a fat kid. Starring Jerry O'Connell, cameraman River Phoenix, and assistant director Will Wheaton, And second assistant director,
And the jerk on the side.
Corey Feldman. Number 1 torture fat kid. Get a chair. Get a fat kid. Tie his arms behind the chair. Then tie his legs. Now,
You take grapes.
now you take grapes and do this to them. That's it. Mommy?
Yeah, Corey. Get permission one day to do it.
Indiana Jones too.
Right, that's right, exactly. That's good. I wouldn't do that, but I like when it wraps around you. Wrap it around you again. I like that.
The movie has chosen to pick young Indy up at a certain point in his life where he experiences many different things which are very significant and forever change him. Forever. And basically he'll never be the same. For instance,
Oh my God.
you see how he gets this phobia for snakes.
Yeah, well, the second one is the one where it flies back in the face. You see it pretty well. River did it before with the felt lip.
Dump truck driving down a road, loses brakes, goes off the cliff. Clara goes to see the ducks at the pond. Manic woman tripping on the umbrella. From day to day, you have the things that rub you the wrong way. That rhymes, notice that. And you deal with them, and once you do, then you begin. That rhyme too. To make things better. Hey Jude.
Sidney Lumet taught you things, technically, about the camera, the lack of self-consciousness, and the actor's awareness of where the camera was at all times. How did that come about, River?
He taught me that. Recently, the only station we get now where we live is, it's all fuzzy and messed up, but we get it, and we're there at a certain time every night to watch Taxi, and it's great seeing Shadow Taxi. I love that. That show slays me.
So we saw your movie, finally.
I know. Came to the
We
premiere.
went there
I was
together.
there. We like all rode together.
You idiot! My
Picking
rags.
up all of these
Dog hairs, definitely, because I can see them and I've noticed them. No,
This is my clean hoodie too. So I have 5 of them, and 4 of them
I know. I was
dirty.
dusting. It's so obvious you have such a strong inner critic by how first it's a 13-year-old boy and now it's
Roger. This is my
exactly
internal critic, Rohair. Sometimes I have several. There's a 13-year-old, there's an older man. Yeah.
And it was a better sort of thought to say like, well, authentism or authenticity or truth.
Well, I prefer authenticism.
I thought that was a great word.
I feel like
I'm your Rohair. I can't believe.
She's like, Jorge, you're my Rohair.
I remember Riv trying to teach me guitar when I was young, and it hurt my fingers, and I thought it was stupid, and it took way too much work, and I was like, ugh. And I think it was like 2 lessons, like not a chance. Your Rohair, by the way, is non-existent. It's incredible.
Just let it go. I just let
never,
it fly.
It's like, yeah, Ray, just keep at it, whatever you're doing today. I'm on vacation.
My Rohair is totally a stoner. My inner critic is just like, you're good.
Well, River, we've used up our time, but again, it's been very nice. Yeah, it's been very nice talking with you.
You stay out of this. We're talking some more. No.
I was a dancer from age 5 to 12. Then I did music and acting. These are all worlds that are very hard to describe. You would have had to have been there yourself. But the mood surrounding them made me feel so completely in tune with the Phoenix children's past. I would look at pictures of them and think, I remember that. As I grew up, I myself was part of a group of ragtag kids. We hung out in the woods, and since I was the oldest, by a year, when walking through drain pipes or anything the least bit creepy, my shirt was always clung to, and I was always voted to go first. Not unlike Chris, I would have my moments of reckless abandon and was known as a goofball in my own right. but I couldn't get out of the fact that I was the natural peacemaker. At the end of the day, I was the parent of the group. That can get lonely at times. Now, after the experience of getting to know Joaquin and River better, I've gotten to know myself better. At the moment, I've been making music inspired by River. Todo para você, nunca, nunca. Nunca vou te enganar, vai me enganar, vou te enganar, vai me enganar, vou te enganar. You know my heart cannot pretend. You have me back with only one phrase. Just like old times, your hand in mine. No need to cry, no when or why. Just two old friends, no start, no end. With all the time in the world. Today, I can't wait to see where the river may lead me next. I had only one dream of note in April. I was scared to open up so much while making this diary. I had the same fears that I did when making the documentary. What is too much to tell? Does it come across correctly? Can I do this? In the morning hours, I dreamt that River was talking to me. He said, "This is about you this time." He was referring to the fact that I had struggled so to carry the weight of his life, and this diary was about my story. I looked down and I said, "Well, I guess you're right. I have been hiding behind you, haven't I?" But really, the documentary and the diary were a process of give and take. River smiled the most forgiving smile you've ever seen, and he said, "That's all right. I've been hiding behind you, too." It seems that in some way, we needed each other.
I'm gonna love you like nobody's loved you, come rain or come shine. High as a mountain and deep as a river, come rain or come shine. I guess when you met me, it was just one of those things. But don't ever bet me, 'cause I'm gonna be true if you let me. I'm gonna love you like nobody's loved you, come rain or come shine. Happy together, unhappy together, and won't it be fine? Days may be cloudy or sunny,